All right, hopefully we are now live, and I apologize for the technical difficulties this evening of August 7th, 2026, as we relaunch. Hopefully we are now live. All right, so as we relaunch our at-home planetarium show with our tour through the solar system, and I'm going to just check in here with a couple things to make sure that we really are running live the way that we're supposed to. And also, if anyone is watching, that will allow me to interact with you through the chat. So I'm going to do that here. And then we will get underway. All right. So I again welcome to the our return to the At Home Planetarium show after a somewhat long hiatus. My name is Scott Harris. I'm a planetary geologist here in the Atlanta area, and I hope if you're not watching this with me live that you are able to see the recording later. The intent here is to provide a entertaining and educational tour through the solar system, as well as begin by a bit of a traditional planetarium show talking about the things that you can see out in the night sky. And so to get that started, I'm going to go over to our planetarium software, one piece of our planetarium software that we call Stellarium. And as I am doing that, I am going to again remind you that if you are watching live and want to communicate in the chat, it would be great to hear from you. And if you have any questions, I'll be monitoring those and will be very happy to do my best to answer those. And if you're watching this later in the recorded in a recorded time, then again, please continue to put comments and questions in the chat. It'd be great to know that you're there and interact with you. And you're also welcome to email me at any time at southernspacerocks@gmail.com. And so I'm going to get underway here with our view of the nighttime sky. And this is what our sky would look like here over the northern parts of Georgia right here as we get close to 9:30 p.m. And as we look off to the west there, we likely are to see the bright planet Venus. And if we have a telescope available, we could zoom in on Venus. And let's see if we can, there are different ways of zooming here, but I want to do this right now. And if we get a telescopic view, we would see that we actually have a phase of Venus there. We have a quarter Venus, sort of like we have our quarter moons. And that is because Venus, like Mercury as well, that is closer to the sun than we are, we have the opportunity to see partially illuminated faces of those planets, like we do our own moon, and get to experience those phases. And so as we look a little bit higher in the sky, I will point out that Venus lies along what we call the ecliptic, and I'm actually turning on there the ecliptic and the equator. The equator of the Earth sketched out on our sky, and the ecliptic was the equator of our solar system, which is a bit like if you took a flat plate and ran it through the center of the sun and went out through the entire solar system. That surface would intersect our sky, not at our equator, because we are tilted on our axis about 23.5 degrees or so. And because of that, our equator and the ecliptic don't match up. There's a little bit of tilt. And we're interested right now in seeing that ecliptic because planets and asteroids and other things in orbit around the sun tend to be accumulated pretty close to, not necessarily right on, but pretty close to that ecliptic. Not everything, but most things. And so let me get rid of the equator, and we're going to follow the ecliptic and see if we can find any other objects that might be out there to look at that are in our planetary family, and not seeing a whole lot. Now, we might come back to that in a little bit, but this is also a convenient place to look along that line to find some bright stars right now. We will see the blue Spica there in the constellation of Virgo. And as we move along, we will find the red star Antares. This is a very large red supergiant. And the name Antares actually has to do with the fact that we're finding it along that ecliptic, because what else that would be bright and red could we find along that equator of the solar system? Remember I said planets hang out there. So different times of the year, we might find Mars along that line. And because Mars is sort of the same color of red in the sky as Antares, ancient astronomers named Antares the anti-Aries, or the anti-Mars, the other Mars. And sometimes you're lucky enough to see them very close together. Now, Antares is the brightest star in the constellation of Scorpius, the Scorpion. And if you can't see the scorpion there in the sky, I'll help you out by pointing out that I just don't look for a scorpion, I look for a flower. And we have the petals of the flower here with the connection to the stem being Antares. So imagine the petals coming out here around to the west and the stem descending toward the south, and it looping around there into a stinger, or I guess maybe the little root of the plant there, or maybe it's like a Venus flytrap ready to grab you. The ancients saw a scorpion, and so I'll help us out there with what they saw by first putting those lines there. Again, still looks a bit like a flower. If you might think of it as a claw if you want to, but we can add in the artwork and take a look and see our scorpion. Now next door you'll see an archer, and that is Sagittarius the archer. If I take away the artwork, we're left with the outlines of that constellation that really don't look much like an archer or a horse or anything other than, well, maybe kind of a weird little hat here. Well, many people call this little hat a certain star shape called an asterism. That's like the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper is just a shape of stars in the form of a Big Dipper. It's part of a constellation called Ursa Major, the Big Bear. Well, here the constellation is Sagittarius the Archer, but in the heart of the Archer is this sort of weird looking hat with an antenna. Or if you want to think a little more classy, you think maybe that's the center of a kettle. And out here is the spout, and here's the handle. And so we have what some people refer to as the teapot. You see it, right? Now, it's helped if you're in a dark sky, because out of the end of the spout, you might see a fog, kind of like steam ascending, and that is our galaxy, our arm of the galaxy that we see from Earth, the arm of the Milky Way. This is a Milky Way, right? It kind of looks like steam going into the sky. You buy that, right? Hey, I'm a planetary geologist. I'm not an astronomer. Don't blame me. But I know the stories. I know how to direct you to these. So I'm going to put the artwork back up there just so that you can see that. If you're interested, there's also the constellation of Ophiuchus, the healer, serpent healer here. And some of you, if you keep up with that horoscopes and astrology, might be aware that that's sort of the lost zodiac symbol between Scorpius and Sagittarius. That's actually where I am, right there at in the middle of December on the edge of Ophiuchus. Now, if we follow around, we see Capricorn and Aquarius just rising there. Let's see if we find anything else high in the sky. Well, there's Virgo as well, the maiden. If we look a little higher above Spica, we find the bright red star of Arcturus. That is the brightest star in the constellation of Boötes, the herdsman. Now, this is a great place to show you, and we'll get rid of the artwork again. In fact, we'll get rid of the lines. And we find Arcturus in the sort of western, looking west. And if we look over to the north, we're going to see that asterism that we call the Big Dipper. Right? There's the handle, there's the pan. My astronomer friends like pointing out that if you take the handle of the Big Dipper, it forms a bit of an arc in the sky, a curved line. That arc goes right around to Arcturus, so they will say you arc to Arcturus. You probably know that if you take the other side of the dipper, the two stars there, the end of the pan, and shoot a straight line from the horizon through them, you will intersect this star, and that is Polaris, the North Star. It is not the brightest star in the sky. It's only about 49th or 50th. But it is what ancient navigators used to be able to find north. And why? Because, well, one of the things we can do with the Planetarium software is make time go by really, really, really fast. And if I make time go by super fast, we see that the entire sky rotates around that. Now I'm going to go backwards here so that we don't get too far away from the day. And we'll return back to where we are really fast. Here we are. And notice there's the North Star. The North Star is still there, right? And go forward again. North Star is just staying there to the north. That's why it's useful for navigation. You can depend on it being there. And there we are. Now, just in case you wanted to see that big bear again, you probably caught a glimpse of it before, but there he is, his back and his tail of Ursa Major. Now, you probably are aware, too, that the North Star, Polaris, is the end of the tail of the Little Dipper, or that's the asterism at the center of Ursa Minor, the baby bear. And just above that is Draco the dragon. If we look around to the northeast, we might be able to see Cygnus the swan, along with Aquila the eagle, and Lyra the hart. Now, why do I point those out? The brightest stars in each of those form what we call the summer triangle. That's another asterism in the sky that's very popular this time of year. And if I get rid of the artwork on that one, it becomes very obvious. Okay, so we have Vega, Deneb, Altair, and the Deneb in the tail feathers of the swan, you can look at the swan flying along in that Milky Way. So if you follow from Sagittarius and Scorpius, actually over here, we find Arcturus, or excuse me, Antares with the with Scorpius, and here's our teapot, and we see our Milky Way coming out of the kettle. We can follow that all the way over to the northeast, and we can find that the swan here is flying right along that same Milky River stars. It's a great place to be able to see where the Milky Way should be, even if you're in a light polluted sky. And again, those stars make up the summer triangle. All right, so let's see what else is out there this time of year. Well, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the night here. I'm going to go to just after midnight. And we see Saturn rising there just before midnight. And it could take you about 2 a.m. If you have a really good telescope, you might be able to find Uranus there, but it'll be difficult because the moon is here, although the moon at this point is not going to be that big a problem because we're there in a waning crescent. So not too much light coming from the moon. Maybe with a good telescope, you could see the little blue, the mint green to blue disk of Uranus. Now, the big reason I wanted to do this is I want us to look out into the sky this time of night, and I'm going to turn our artwork back on, and we are looking for a guy out of Greek mythology that is responsible for slaying Medusa. Do you see him? See, he's carrying Medusa's head right there. That is Perseus. Perseus, the hero that saved the Princess Andromeda, she's right there. Her mom is here. That is the sort of the royal family of that part of the sky. That's the Queen Cassiopeia. But I want to focus there on Perseus. So again, you saw him rise there above the moon, just behind Saturn, there as we got to around 2 o'clock in the morning, actually 3 o'clock at this point. So what I'm going to do is take our artwork away again. I'm even going to take away that ecliptic line, and I just want you to stare at the sky. Do you see Perseus? All right, I'm going to put in the constellation markers. You see his body, one leg, another leg. It sort of forms a K in the sky. You see that? And there he is. And there's the artwork going away. And then we're left with just a little bit of a K. Or his body and his legs, or you saw there maybe Medusa's head. Why am I showing you this? Well, this here in another several days. So we're on August the 7th today. I'm showing you tomorrow night sky. No, actually, tomorrow morning sky. We're in the right. So this is later tonight into tomorrow morning. And that puts us now 4 days away from the peak of the Perseid meteor shower. And you could go outside and see some of the Perseids right now. They are leftover icy remains of the comet Swift-Tuttle. We intersect where that comet has been in the past every year, and we have little ice grains hit us at very high velocity, and they cause the air to glow with beautiful greenish and blue colors from the ionizing oxygen and nitrogen. And I'm going to advance time here a little bit. Let's see if we can do this so that we're going to go very, very fast. Hold on, everybody. And we are here on the 12th. So if you are able to be out there on the 12th or 13th, and either side, you again want to be in those early morning hours. I'm going to put it as 2 o'clock there. And again, look out there, see if you see him. And there he is. You're going to be looking just to the northeast. That is where the radiate for that meteor shower is. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone's going to look like it's coming right out of that spot. But if you look in that area of the sky, you're going to have a much easier time identifying the Perseid meteors. The other thing that's happening on the 12th is kind of special, and we really can't see from here in North Georgia. But you can look at it online, and that is a solar eclipse. In fact, there are areas of the world that will be treated to a total solar eclipse. And just to share a little bit of that with you, I'm going to go over here to a little NASA video. And just to share a little.
Sun influences everything we experience on Earth. Earth is so perfectly positioned to experience this.
Totality hits.
Sun
This amazing phenomenon that is so rare throughout the
Earth
universe.
is so perfectly positioned to experience
This is a
this.
great time to learn
Totality
more
hits.
about our own star and how it affects our daily
Sun
lives.
This
influences
amazing phenomenon
chills,
that
ice
is so
bursts
rare
into
throughout the
Earth is
universe.
so perfectly
It's
positioned
insane.
to experience
This is a
this.
great time to learn
Totality
more
hits.
about our own star and how it affects our daily lives.
Amazing phenomenon that is so rare throughout the
Earth is
universe.
so perfectly
It's
positioned.
insane.
And if you're interested in seeing more details about the eclipse, there is a, let's see, there's a great, there's a website out there that I wanted to take you to. Let me find that here just for you just for a moment. Let's see, here we go. And back to you. And let's see if we can get that up here. Okay, there we go. And this is a, you can go to NASA Eclipse. It's eclipse.gsf and DSFC for Goddard Space Flight. Get that up here. Okay, there we go. And this is a, you can go to NASA Eclipse. This will give you all the details about the total solar eclipse that will be space flight. Get primarily viewable from Iceland. And this is a, you can go to NASA Eclipse. This will give you all the details about the total solar eclipse that will be space flight. Get primarily viewable from Iceland. And this is a in the astronomy and NASA biz. This will give you all the probably have friends about the total solar eclipse. Lousy right now. Get primarily from Iceland. And but in the you pick your astronomy. I got to see this will give you all the probably have friends about the total solar eclipse. Lousy right now. I got to see 97%. And but in the you pick your astronomy. I got to see this and all the probably have Atlanta out as I was reading. Lousy right now. I got to see 97%. And but in the you pick your astronomy. I got to see this and all the probably have Atlanta out as I was reading. Lousy right now. I got to see 97%. And but in the you pick your astronomy. I got to see this and all the probably have Atlanta out as I was reading. Lousy right now. I got to see 97%. And but in the you astronomy. I got to see this and all the probably have Atlanta out as I was reading. Lousy right now. I got to see 97%. And but in the astronomy. I got to see. Now I'm going to turn for the next 20-25 minutes or so over to the other part of our planetarium show tonight, which is our tour through the solar system. We're not going to see everything, but every time we do these, we use our combination of our open space software that is produced by our friends with the Hayden Planetarium and the American Museum of Natural History, as now and with partners around the globe. I was very happy to start using this to make presentations many years ago, and got to go and see some of the ins and outs of it with its creator, Carter Emmert, the Planetarium Master Emeritus for the American Museum of Natural History. And it's just a wonderful piece of software that I'll share with you in a moment. And anything we can't see with that, we'll see with NASA Eyes, which is available to you on the NASA websites. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But for now, we're going to head out to our solar system. And to do that, we go over to our Open to You program on the NASA websites. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But for now, we're going to head out to our solar system. See what's out there. And I see two objects here that we're pretty close to. On the one looks like it's orbiting around the other. Take a look at that. Now, obviously, those lines are. But for now, we're going to head out to guide see what's out there. In fact, we see two objects here, right? We have something. One looks like it's orbiting around the other. Orbiting it. Now, obviously, those lines are. But for now, we're going to head out. I'm going to take you what's out there. In fact, we see two objects here, right? We have something. Looks like it's orbiting around the other. Orbiting it. One of my favorite lines. But for now, we're going to head out. I'm going to take you what's out there. I see two bullseye on our feet have something objects out there orbiting it. One of my favorite lines are the Greek scholars out there. I'm going to tell you what's out there. That I see two bullseye on our feet have something objects out there. Really unofficial. One of my favorite lines are the Greek scholars out there. I'm going to tell you what's out there. That I see two bullseye on our feet have something objects out there. Really unofficial. One of my favorite lines a lot of scholars out there. I'm going to something that governed bullseye had by something out there. Really underworld. They a lot of scholars out there. I'm going to something that governed bullseye had by something out there. And so they a lot of scholars out there. Also, something that governed bullseye had by something out there. And so they a It's sharing of the solar system. And I just want to show you one more thing before I leave you, and that is if you, the open space is actually a platform that is available for you. It's an open source planetarium program that is great for entertainment and instruction. You can look it up, but it is a little bit heavy on the processing requirements. If that is too much for you and you want to get a quick and slightly slightly lower resolution view of our solar system and take this tour yourself, you can do that through NASA Eyes, and I'm going to go over that here. Lower eyes.nasa.gov, lower resolution view of our solar system, and we can take this tour yourself. You can do that through NASA Eyes. Where it is right now here, lower eyes.nasa.gov, so that I can zoom in on view of our solar system. And you notice that Psyche there, that is an active mission. It's on its way out to NASA Eyes. Asteroid 26 is right now here. Lower eyes.nasa.gov, so that I can zoom in on undergraduate alma mater. And you notice that Psyche there, that is an active mission. It's on its way out to NASA Eyes. Asteroid 26 analysis right now here. Lower eyes.nasa.gov, so that I can a lot of undergraduate alma mater about. And you notice that Psyche, that is if we could drag it here, drag it here, mind it where it's in all those right now. Lower eyes.nasa.gov, so that I can a lot of undergraduate alma mater valuable. And you notice that Psyche, that is if we could drag it here, drag it here, mind it where it's in all those right now. Lower eyes.nasa.gov, so that I can a lot of undergraduate alma mater valuable. And you notice that Psyche, that is if we could drag it here, drag it here, mind it where it's in all those right now. Right also NASA, that I can a lot of undergraduate alma mater valuable. And you notice that Psyche, that is if we could drag it here, drag it here, mind it where it's in all those right now. And this again is very uncertain. And regardless, a lot of undergraduate alma valuable that are produced right now live in drag it here, drag it here, mind it right now in all the right now. And this again is very uncertain. And regardless, a lot of undergraduate alma valuable that are produced so I hope whether you've been here with me live or if you're watching this later in its recorded version, it's a pleasure to have you with us to restart the At Home Planetarium show, and we will publish a schedule for these in the future. Sometimes we will be taking tours through the solar system. We always will begin with a traditional planetarium look at the nighttime sky so that you're aware of events going on. So be sure to look for those Perseid meteors and run to Iceland and look at that total solar eclipse. It's going to be cool for some of those people who are in Iceland watching this because they've been told this is occurring during the peak of the Perseid. So look for Perseid meteors in the daytime sky, right? During those few minutes that you'll have darkness with the eclipse. So we look forward to being here with you in coming days and weeks. And as always, if you have questions about the Earth, about the solar system, about Earth and space science, or even astronomy, please feel free to contact me at either on our Facebook page at the Georgia Space and Rocks, that's with the acronym JASPER, and or by emailing me at southernspacerocks@gmail.com. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And again, thanks for the putting up with the slight technical delay. When we start this up, we work out some of the technical difficulties. We think we're going to be in good shape from here on with our presentations. So thanks for your patience. See you next time. Bye-bye.